This is the Ramana Maharshi satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. I'm not a guru or a teacher. I love this teaching, so I just want to share it. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. This week is talk 133. The questioner earnestly explained that his faith in Shaiva Siddhanta, Vedanta, etc., was shaken after reading the Baha'i literature. "Please save me," he said. The Ramana says, "Yes, quite so." The questioner says, "Show me grace." Maharshi says, "Grace always is and is not given. Why do you consider the pros and cons of Bahulya or others as being incarnations or otherwise? Know thyself. Regard everything as truth. Regard him also as truth. Can he exist besides truth? Your beliefs may change, but not truth." And then the devotee says, "Show me the truth of Siddhanta, etc." And Maharshi says, "Follow their instructions. And then if you have doubts, you may ask. Adherence to those instructions will take you only to Mona. Differences are perceived in external objects only. If you follow their instructions, all differences will be lost. No one but the son of a king can be called a prince. So also only that which is perfect is called perfection. One should not be content with mere discipleship, initiation, ceremony of surrender, etc. These are external phenomena. Never forget the truth underlying all phenomena. Now, my comments in this dialogue from Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, a teacher expresses his inner turmoil and confusion after reading Baha'i literature, which has shaken his faith in Shiva, Siddhanta, and Vedanta, spiritual teachings he previously believed in. Shaiva Siddhanta, like Advaita Vedanta, upholds the principle of non-dualism. It teaches that the ultimate reality, referred to as Brahman or Shiva, is the sole existence, and all apparent distinctions and dualities are illusory. Its focus is on bhakti and surrender rather than self-inquiry and knowledge. Also on temple worship and rituals, as well as Shakti, the divine feminine energy considered essential for creation and sustenance. Shiva and Shakti are often seen as inseparable aspects of the ultimate reality. So he approaches Ramana seeking guidance and solace. Ramana's responses are rooted in the principles of Advaita Vedanta that emphasize the oneness of all existence and the true nature of reality. The seeker explains that his faith in various spiritual paths has been disturbed by reading Baha'i literature. He expresses a sense of confusion and asks for help, saying, "Please save me." Baha'i emphasizes the essential oneness of all religions and the unity of humanity. They emphasize the principles of oneness with God, the oneness of religion, and the oneness of humanity. The Baha'i faith promotes social harmony, world peace, and the elimination of prejudice. Baha'i teaches about various messengers of God, incarnations of teacher. They perceive reality as multifaceted, with each manifestation of God bringing teachings suited to the needs of humanity at different times. Ramana's response is succinct and profound. He advises the seeker to turn inward and realize the true nature of the self. By knowing the ever-present and unchanging self, the seeker can attain stability and overcome wavering doubts. This is instead of looking outside of himself to the changing teachings of the Baha'i messengers of God. The seeker then asks for divine grace to be shown to him. Ramana's response highlights the inherent existence of grace. He states that grace is always and is an essential part of the nature of reality. It cannot be given or withheld. Grace is always present. He advises the seeker not to get up in debating the status of spiritual figures like Baha'u'llah, the founder of Baha'i, as incarnations or not. Baha'i teaches the concept of manifestations of God, which includes figures like Baha'u'llah, Muhammad, Jesus, and others who are seen as divine messengers, bringing new revelations and teachings to humanity. Instead, Ramana encourages the seeker to focus on self-inquiry and self-realization. Maharshi emphasizes that everything, including Baha'u'llah, should be seen as an expression of the underlying truth. He reminds the seeker that beliefs may change, but the ultimate truth remains constant. The seeker seeks clarification on the truth of Shaiva Siddhanta and Vedanta. Maharshi's response is practical. He suggests that the seeker should follow the instructions of Shaiva Siddhanta and Vedanta. By adhering to their practices and teachings, the seeker will naturally transcend doubts and reach a state of inner silence, or mona. Maharshi explains that differences and distinctions are perceived only by the mind of external objects. By sincerely following the teachings, these distinctions will dissolve, leading to a direct experience of unity. Finally, saying, never forget the truth underlying all phenomena. Ramana underscores the importance of recognizing the underlying truth that is always there. He advises against getting fixated on external rituals, ceremonies, or designations. These are superficial aspects. Instead, you should constantly remember the fundamental truth that transcends all appearances. This dialogue reflects Ramana Maharshi's central teaching on self-inquiry, realization of the self, and the importance of transcending dualistic perceptions. He encourages you to go beyond mere intellectual debates and religious comparisons, and instead focus on direct experience and inner realization. The key to stability and understanding lies in recognizing the underlying truth that underlies all beliefs and paths. So inquire, know yourself, and be always free and at peace. Now a talk from Nomi without differences.
Reality is undifferentiated. There is no distinction between being and consciousness and bliss. Searching inwardly, inquire to know your existence and determine if it is individualized, that being the prime difference. Differences appear according to the definition supposed for the individual. Individuality itself being the first definition. So if the misidentification or definition is one of being an embodied individual, for example, then an external world is assumed to exist. If, however, you are not embodied, then what is it that is referred to as the world or the objective sphere of experience? If you are not the body, what difference could there be between the universe and yourself? Similarly, if through imagination limitations are further superimposed upon the individual self, then that individualized self is considered limited or bound, and the absolute is something distinct therefrom of an unlimited nature. If such limitations are not falsely attributed to yourself, where is the distinction between the Absolute, the Supreme, and yourself? Who is it that conceives of differences? You and the world, you and God, you and others, etc. The common ingredient is you. Yet who are you? Can you actually have an existence apart from that existence? Can there really be a knowing mind distinct from the infinite consciousness? Is bliss or happiness ever other than one's own nature? If you are endowed with a form, there is differentiation of forms everywhere. Does your being have a form? If not, what then is all this difference? If you are individualized, then there is all this. If individuality is not true regarding your existence, that is, if the self is egoless, what becomes of all this? Wise sages declare that all this is most certainly Brahman. Do you understand? If you do, then Brahman alone is. And Brahman is perfect. The imperfect individual is merely imagined. If we seek for whom such imagination appears, it vanishes. For it is in the very nature of illusion to be rootless. In reality, none of the different kinds of differences exist. Who are you? In the Shastras, 3 kinds of differences are mentioned. Differences between things of completely different nature, differences between things of the same nature, and there being one thing with internal differences. It is a description of one's view of Jagat Jivapara, the universe, the individual, and the supreme. None of the different kinds of differences actually exist. All such conception depends on the first difference. If the first difference exists, then there is all these others. If the first difference has not yet occurred, then all this is only Brahman, and the self is only Brahman. The first difference is the I notion, as declared by the Maharshi. search for the root of the I notion, or search for the validity of the idea or the supposition of being an individual. In and for the I-less self, there is no difference ever. Realize this and remain undisturbed.
And now we'll take a little time and inquire. Notice that you exist, and you know that you exist. And now inquire, investigate within yourself. What within myself is the unchanging essence beyond all doctrines and scriptures? What is the inherent grace that exists in all things? What is the inner silence, Mona, where all external differences dissolve, revealing the essence that unites them all? Can you find this inner silence within yourself? What is the underlying truth that permeates all phenomena, the profound reality? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. And another chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right, Evelyn, where Nomi was Virupaksha Cave. And you'll be there too.
Yeah, I remember sitting there, and I almost didn't come out.
Wow.
Yeah, completely, uh, completely complete.
Yes.
And I really didn't know anything about it.
It doesn't require that kind of
No.
mental knowledge.
Clearly not.
As I read up on Baha'i, it seems like for something that's still kind of dual, it's not so bad.
Thanks, Teach.
Well, they seem to be very loving, well-meaning folks. The
Yeah.
ones
Right.
that I've ever, yeah.
But still, there was this kind of underlying belief in the reality of the world and the need to have different messengers of God at different
Mhm.
times.
Yeah.
And
They had,
again, go
they had
ahead.
little social justice kind of things,
Right,
going on in there.
that's right.
Where Ramana's teaching is entirely to turn within,
Right,
and not when you turn within so deeply, when the mind doesn't go out at all,
right, exactly.
is the end of a me.
Yes,
Yeah.
And yet we rely on Ramana as a messenger of that.
but
Yeah.
Ramana is a messenger, keeps pointing us to look inside.
Well, so did the other guys. I mean, they mentioned Jesus in there. I don't know what the other guys think, but
Yeah, Jesus tried really hard to,
yeah.
That's
but
right.
nobody really paid any attention.
But Jesus only taught for 2 years, and we were with Naomi for 15 years and felt like kind of at the end of that, we were kind of getting it. So I wonder who besides Mary of Jesus's disciples actually got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
Doesn't seem-
Thomas.
Doesn't
Yeah,
seem
the
like
gospel
anyone.
account. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the things that I observe is these transition times when the great spiritual teacher dies, and mostly the people who are around him are the people who, though they're well intentioned, they never really got it. That's why they were still there with him. And those are the
Yeah.
guys that take over.
Yeah. That's so true.
Well, with Ramana, after Rama's body fell, there was Muruganar, and there was
Yes,
Sadhu Om,
yes,
and then they brought the teachings of Ramana through the writings, Guru Vachaka Kavai, and the path of Ramana.
yes. And while the ashram maintained management team, it seems like mainly they just kept out of the way and tried to avoid doing something that was stepping on Ramana's teachings.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
seems like that they also had this Vedanta that was that everybody could look back on, and even Ramana said, "Yeah, my
Right.
teaching is not different." Whereas in
Right.
Christianity, there wasn't much
Mhm.
that was foundational to,
Right,
well,
right,
in the culture. Yeah,
right. I think that's a good point. There was a very well-established foundation
yeah,
that people had been thinking about and debating and practicing for more than 1,000 years.
yeah.
So that
And it
helps. Every 1,000 years helps.
and it wasn't in conflict with what Ramana said.
Right.
No, not at all.
Whereas with the Jews, as soon as Jesus declared that he was God, that was blasphemy in the beginning of the end. They didn't get that at all. Hmm. So,
And in the case of Ramana, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Maybe if Ramana was around in the United States right now, they'd have him in a mental institution.
mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm. And Ramana, instead of declaring he was God, was busy trying to tell us that to find God, we need to look within ourselves.
Yeah.
That's a
That
big,
we're all God. There is no difference.
right. That's the fundamental teaching of Advaita. No difference.
And I think in Christianity, isn't there only one Son of God, Jesus?
Of course.
Yeah,
And
that's how
so
it's been, yeah,
that's a big,
misinterpreted.
huge difference there. And Jesus is over in his grave knowing that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Anyway, we are all blessed with deep grace that somehow we were called to this teaching.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And I appreciate that Ramana in this talk said of grace that grace is just there, it's part of the universe. So you don't have to do anything to manufacture grace. You just have to tune into the grace that's already there.
Yeah.
Right? There are no differences, no matter what religion.
Yes. Anyway, good to be with you again today. And I'm so glad we are able to continue with these sessions. And namaste. May you
Namaste.
have good practice, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.